The man who controls the room isn't always the one talking. He doesn't shout, he doesn't rush, he doesn't try to be liked, and yet everyone waits for him to move. What if I told you, real power has nothing to do with being seen, and everything to do with being felt? Niccolo Machiavelli knew this 500 years ago, but if he were alive today, he wouldn't be writing about power. He'd be silently controlling the world from the shadows. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how. 21 rules he would use. Not in theory, but in the noisy, distracted, hyper-connected world we live in right now. Stick around, because once you understand this, you'll never look at influence the same way again. Have you ever wondered what someone like Niccolo Machiavelli would be doing if he were alive today? He wouldn't be writing books. He wouldn't be tweeting his thoughts or trying to go viral on TikTok. He wouldn't be shouting for attention in a world already too loud. No, he'd be somewhere. No one's looking. Behind the scenes, pulling strings, building quiet empires, invisible yet in control. See, our modern world is obsessed with visibility. We measure worth by followers, clout, and how loud someone can be online. We think if people don't see us, we don't exist. But Machiavelli understood something deeper. Real power never announces itself. While everyone today is busy building a personal brand, Machiavelli would build influence that no algorithm could detect. He wouldn't try to be liked. He'd be the one quietly shaping the rules everyone else follows. And no one would even know it was him, because in this world, the loud are noticed, but the quiet are feared. This video isn't about politics or philosophy in the academic sense. It's about understanding psychological leverage. It's about stepping out of the role of the one who's always reacting and stepping into the role of the one who influences the room without saying a word. We're going to break down 21 modern rules for total control based on what Machiavelli would do, not centuries ago, but right now. In the age of constant distraction, fake authenticity, and performative confidence, he'd use silence as a weapon. He'd use charm as a trap. He'd disappear right when you thought you had him figured out, and by then, he'd already taken your place. And here's the truth most people don't want to admit. You don't win in life by being the loudest. You win by being the most disciplined. You win by understanding that influence doesn't come from showing everything you are. It comes from showing just enough to make them wonder what you're really capable of. Think about the most powerful people you know, the ones who never seem rushed, the ones who don't try too hard, the ones who leave a room and somehow you still feel them there. That's not charisma. That's calculated presence. And if you're tired of always being the one explaining yourself, proving your worth, chasing approval, maybe it's time to learn what it feels like to stop speaking and start watching, to stop reacting and start designing. Because control isn't about domination. It's about subtlety, precision, patience. It's about becoming the man who doesn't need permission to lead, the man she can't ignore, the man no one dares to underestimate, because they never see him coming. So if you're ready to stop playing the visible game and start mastering the invisible one, let's begin. Have you ever noticed something strange? The most dangerous people in the room are never the ones talking the loudest. They're the ones you barely noticed, the quiet ones, the underestimated ones, the ones who don't need to impress because they've already decided when and how to strike. This is exactly how Machiavelli would operate today. He wouldn't rush to prove himself. He'd walk in last, speak least, and let everyone else reveal their hand first. Because when people underestimate you, they don't prepare for you, and that's when you win. Rule number 1, let them think you're harmless. Let them think you're simple, average, even weak. Because once someone believes you pose no threat, they put their guard down. And when they do, you have access to their blind spot, the place where real power lives. But Machiavelli wouldn't just stop there. He knew something even darker. Charm is more dangerous than truth. In today's world, truth rarely spreads. Perception does. So while most people are out here trying to prove their integrity, trying to show the world they're real and authentic, a Machiavellian mind would smile and build illusion. He'd know that people don't fall. in love with reality. They fall in love with the version of you that you let them see. So why fight to be understood when you can choose to be believed? That's the second rule. Don't fight misperception, exploit it. Let people believe what makes them feel safe, make them trust the mask, and forget to question what's behind it. And now we step into the third rule: deliberately create confusion. This might sound counterintuitive. After all, don't we all want to be clear communicators? But clarity is overrated, because what people don't understand, they can't control. When you're unpredictable, when your moods shift, when your intentions seem to blur, you become a puzzle. And here's the secret. People don't obsess over what they fully understand. They obsess over mystery. That obsession, that's your leverage. The fourth rule: show them the surface, hide the substance. In a world where everyone is broadcasting every move, posting updates, sharing goals, announcing plans, Machiavelli would say, stop showing your map. Move quietly. Make noise only after you've already made progress. Let them think you're stalling. Let them think you're still planning. And then, pass them by in silence. And finally, Rule 5. Build a perfect mask, and then let it crack. Just once. Perfection is forgettable. But imperfection is addictive when it's controlled. So you walk in confident, calm, calculated. But one day you slip, a sharp word, a flash of anger, a moment of insight no one saw coming. And just like that, you're no longer predictable. You're fascinating. They'll wonder what else is behind the curtain. They'll chase the missing 10% for years, because when you reveal just enough to spark curiosity, you no longer have to fight for attention. You become the mystery they can't look away from. Let me ask you something. Have you ever walked out of a conversation and realized you said too much? Maybe it was a meeting, a disagreement, a moment when emotions got ahead of your logic. And the more you talked, the weaker you felt, like every word was giving away a piece of your position. Now imagine the opposite. You say less, just enough, and in that silence, you watch them squirm, guess, overthink. That's not just good communication, that's control. Rule number 6, speak less than necessary, not because you're hiding, but because you're calculating. Because silence isn't emptiness, it's pressure. It's where other people start revealing what you didn't have to ask. Machiavelli would walk into a room today and win by being the one who doesn't need to speak first. The one who doesn't over-explain, overshare, or seek approval. Because when you speak with intention and leave space between your words, you don't chase understanding, you command attention. But silence alone isn't enough. Rule 7. Blur the line between ally and threat. People love certainty. They want to know, are you with me or against me? And that's exactly what a Machiavellian mind would never give them. He would compliment his rivals publicly while outmaneuvering them privately. He'd sit across from enemies, break bread, and smile. Not because he's weak, but because it lulls them into sleep. And the best time to strike is when they're dreaming of safety. Because if they think you're neutral, they don't prepare. And unprepared opponents are the easiest to conquer. Rule 8, make them feel safe before you take control. Instead of fighting for dominance, Machiavelli would let you lead. He'd praise your ideas, speak your language, echo your values. And just when you believed he was following, he'd take the reins cleanly, without resistance. Why? Because when people feel in control, they don't fight back, they invite you in. Now here's where it gets even darker. Rule 9, make them dependent, then disappear. He wouldn't dominate by force. He'd offer value, something no one else could. Insight, stability, confidence. Until one day he pulls back, quietly, without a word. And that absence, it hits harder than any confrontation, because the most powerful position to hold is being needed and unavailable at the same time. And finally, Rule 10, turn favors into psychological chains. Most people give to be liked, but the true tactician gives to own a piece of your pride, not through force, not through guilt, but through imbalance. You feel it every time you remember the help you received, and the way they never asked for anything in return. That's the trick. They don't collect the debt. They just let it ache, and one day you'll pay them back, not with money, but with loyalty, obedience, silence. That's how influence is built, not with shouting, not with power plays, but with psychological elegance. Let that sink in. Let's talk about loyalty, not the kind people say they have. The kind that binds people to you without them even realizing it. Machiavelli understood something most people never will. The deepest form of loyalty doesn't come from admiration, it comes from compromise. Rule 11, let them betray others. For you, you don't need to force it. Just leave the door slightly open. Let them gossip about a friend in your presence. Let them bend a rule to win your approval. Let them give you a secret that wasn't meant to be shared. Once they cross that line, even slightly, they're no longer just loyal, they're invested. Because people protect the things they've compromised for. They don't want to lose you. Because losing you means facing what they did to keep you. That's how you build loyalty without saying a word. Now take it one step further. Rule 12, destroy alliances, not with conflict, but with whispers. See, Machiavelli wouldn't walk into a group and fight the leader. He'd plant doubt. I heard he said something about you. Ever notice how she never defends you in meetings? You don't accuse, you just suggest. And the seeds take root in silence, because once trust breaks inside a group, you don't need to break it from the outside. It crumbles on its own. Let their paranoia do the work for you, and once the cracks form, that's when you move. Rule 13, reflect their insecurities, gently. This is subtle. You don't insult, you don't criticize. You say things like, you did well, especially for someone who's not used to being in the spotlight. Or, you always seem to rise above, even when people doubt you. What do these statements do? They touch the bruise without pressing too hard. They make people feel seen, but only in their weakness. And once you become the person who gets their pain, they listen to you. They trust you, even if that trust is built on discomfort. Now here's a golden rule. Never hold the knife. That's number 14. Even when something ugly has to be done, you don't swing the blade. You step back. Let others take the fall. Let them believe the chaos was their idea. Let your absence be so clean, no one can trace it back to you. Because when people see you as the executioner, you make enemies. But when they think you're just the last man standing after someone else failed, you gain power without blood on your hands. And finally, Rule 15, say nothing and let them reveal everything. In any room, the most powerful person is not the loudest. It's the one who listens, the one who watches. Because when you stay silent, people fill the silence. And in that nervous rush to explain, justify, impress, they expose their fears, intentions, insecurities. You don't need to interrogate them. They'll hand you the truth, piece by piece. Just to escape the discomfort of your quiet presence. Silence isn't weakness. It's design, it's tension, it's control without confrontation. And that, my friend, is how Machiavelli would set his traps. Not with force, but with psychological elegance. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been haunted, not by what someone did, but by what they might do? That moment of uncertainty, that tension in your chest when you can't predict their next move. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's psychological warfare. And Machiavelli would tell you that's the most effective kind. Rule 16, be unpredictable, but only when it matters. You don't need to be erratic. That's chaos, not control. You just need to break their expectations at key moments. When they think you'll forgive, you disappear. When they expect you to speak, you go silent. When they assume you'll stay calm, you strike. Because here's the truth. People can only manipulate what they understand. And the person they can't predict is the person they can't prepare for. Now imagine this. You walk out of the room, and your presence still lingers. They hesitate. They second-guess themselves. They hold back because they remember how you handled things the last time. That's Rule 17. Make your presence felt even in absence. This isn't about being famous. It's about becoming a standard, a reference point. The ghost in the room that makes everyone else act just a little more carefully. You don't have to dominate conversations. You just have to leave a memory strong enough that people start asking, what would he do if he were here? And here's the next level. Rule 18. Never threaten. Let fear do the work. Threats are loud, crude, and worst of all, they give your opponent something to push against. But imagination? That's where real fear lives. When you pause after someone lies. When you disappear after someone crosses the line. When you say nothing at all. They start asking themselves questions. They start spiraling because they don't know what's coming. And not knowing is worse than any spoken threat. Fear based on imagination lasts longer than fear based on facts. And Machiavelli knew when they fear the unknown, they start acting in your favor, just to avoid waking the storm. Now let's take a darker turn. Rule 19. Delay revenge until it becomes devastating. Most people react quickly, out of pride, out of anger. But that's not control. That's weakness disguised as strength. Machiavelli would wait. He'd let the wound rot. He'd let them relax, believe they got away with it, and then strike when they've forgotten how to defend themselves. Because the longer the delay, the deeper the damage. And finally, the final form of power. Rule 20 and 21. Become a system, not a man. Become a myth, not a memory. A man can be removed, replaced, forgotten. But a system, a standard, a philosophy woven into the way people operate, that lasts. Even when you're gone, you don't just teach people to follow you. You teach them to think like you, to move like you, to lead like you, without even realizing it. And when they whisper about you long after you've left, not by name, but in warnings, in standards, in unspoken rules, you've reached the final tier of influence. You've become the ghost no one dares to summon. You don't trend, you haunt. That is Machiavellian mastery. So let me leave you with this. If Machiavelli were alive today, he wouldn't be chasing likes, followers, or headlines. He wouldn't be posting thought leadership threads trying to go viral. He wouldn't be building a brand, he'd be building a presence. So powerful, so precise, so deeply embedded that people wouldn't even dare say his name, because that's the final form of power, not being known, but being felt, not needing to defend your reputation, because your absence speaks louder than anyone else's presence. See, real influence doesn't ask for recognition, it doesn't beg to be seen. It simply becomes essential. It becomes the quiet center of gravity that holds the room, even when you're not in it. And when you operate like that, you stop asking, how can I make them like me? And you start asking, how can I become unignorable? This is what Machiavelli would have mastered today, not by playing the visible game, but by reshaping the rules in silence. He'd train others to think like him without ever calling it a philosophy. He'd become the voice in your head when you make hard decisions, the pause before you speak, the standard you compare others to long after he's gone. He wouldn't chase a crown. He'd become the reason everyone else still bows. And that's the ultimate win, not being followed, but being built into the foundation of how others move, think, and lead. A presence so deeply woven into the system that removing you would mean tearing down everything else with it. That's not influence. That's legacy. So here's the final thought I'll leave with you. You don't need to be loud to lead. You don't need to be seen to be feared. And you don't need to be liked to be remembered. You just need to become the one variable they can't calculate, the one absence they can't afford, the one shadow they can't ignore, because everything feels different when you're gone. Machiavelli wouldn't ask for respect. He'd move in such a way that the world wouldn't know how to move without him, and neither should you. You don't need to be loud to lead. You don't need to be liked to be remembered, and you don't need to win. If you design the board they're playing on. Machiavelli wouldn't chase attention. He'd become the presence they can't explain, but can't escape. That's not manipulation, that's mastery. And the only question left is, will you keep reacting to the game? Or start becoming the one who wrote the rules? If this video shifted your mindset, share it. If it made you uncomfortable, watch it again. And if you're ready for more, you know what to do. Like, talk, or subscribe. Let the algorithm wonder why you suddenly became unreadable.